What is happening, everybody? It's Shrimp Tom here, and today I wanted to go over the new character I've recently been playing. So I just finished playing Sorcerer, and I needed to finish off those Elf lives, so I decided, hey, why not play Wood Elf? So after looking at some of the different options with Wood Elf, and also going through the Wood Elf tree, I decided I wanted to use a character that would actually synergize with the Wood Elf tree, so I landed on Barbarian. I know that sounds weird, but there's a couple things in the Wood Elf tree that really synergize with Barbarian, one of which is the falchion bonuses. You get bonus damage to falchions with the Wood Elf tree. As well, you also get some weird wild-based stuff, so you get bonus double strike while using a falchion. You also get bonus damage while using a falchion. And then there's also bonus damage while using a two-handed weapon. So there's some cool synergies there, and you can get strength out of the cores, so I figured, hey, Wood Elf Barbarian sounds perfectly fine. Now, on top of that, I've recently played an Occult Slayer Barbarian with Wisdom as a Falconer, and I've also played a Ravager, but I've never really played as a pure Frenzy Berserker. I also decided to play a Frenzy Berserker because the recent crit multi changes, making it so that Frenzy Berserker gives +2 crit multi, seemed kind of like a good idea to actually get in there and try it out. Similarly, while using a Falchion, because Falchions have really high critical threat range, but the extra multiplier from the Frenzy Berserker seemed kinda good. So I decided that would be an interesting option to go down to try out the character and see what else is out there. So I played through it, and it was pretty interesting, and I really liked getting the chance to do a really, really high amount of damage. The thing you don't realize about Frenzy Berserker before you play it is that it adds a crazy amount of damage. Frenzy adds extra strength, Death Frenzy adds extra strength, and both add additional damage on hit. On top of that, all the additional glancing blow damage really starts to add up. Getting 20% additional glancing blow damage just means you're almost doing your full damage against every single monster in a pack. Plus, having additional chance to proc on-hit weapon effects means that you can put multiple enemies to sleep or trip multiple enemies, and it's pretty cool, actually. So I really enjoyed that playstyle. Now, the things I used a lot when I was doing the leveling, it made it really smooth to be able to use Blood Tributes to get pretty much infinite health, as well as to use Knockout out of the Occult Slayer to pretty much stop any enemies in my tracks, including Reapers. And this allowed me to pretty much play Reaper 3 all the way from level 4 straight up to level 20. So I've really had a good experience with this. I've enjoyed playing around with the Barbarian. It's been just a ton of fun to run in, smash stuff, do a lot of damage. The experience has been made very easy by the fact that I can just give myself infinite temporary hit points using Blood Tribute. Although I will say one of the things that I found a little bit more difficult with the Frenzy Berserker is that you pretty much don't get any healing amp out of the Frenzy Berserker tree. Most of your healing amp would actually come out of the Occult Slayer or Ravager tree, and that makes it a little bit more complicated because you have to decide, okay, do I want to spend more points in the Frenzy Berserker to get more of the offensive capabilities, or do I want to kind of spread my points out a little bit so I don't die as often? I was very lucky that I had a guy who was playing Cleric who kind of just followed me around and gave me a lot of health, so that made it really easy for me. But if you are not sure which one you'd like to do, Blood Tribute does work pretty well. I'd say that if I was playing on Elite or Reaper 1, you could pretty much just get through straight up with Blood Tribute. You don't really need to worry about actually using any of the healing abilities. I also used Raging Blows instead of the increased metabolism that you can get out of the top of the Frenzy Berserker tree, because I figured if I'm playing on Reaper 3, I'm not really healing myself that much anyway, and the self-healing from the increased metabolism or faster metabolism, whatever it's called, is actually reduced by Reaper mode healing penalties, so I figured go with the extra damage. The last thing I want to talk about in the Frenzy Berserker tree is Cracking Attack. So I never really used Cracking Attack, but there is a buff in Cracking Attack called Crazy Strike, where when you attack a monster with Cracking Attack, you gain +2 W, and I think it's +5 melee power for 12 seconds. Conveniently, Cracking Attack is a 12-second cooldown. Getting +2 W is absolute nutty. So I played with a Falchion, which is a weapon that does not have a great base damage multiplier. It's only 2d4, so it's 2 to 8 damage. But if you were playing with something like a Great Axe, that's 1 to 12 as opposed to 2 to 8, or a Greatsword, which is 2 to 12, you would be seeing some crazy numbers. I really wanted to just like shove in the Sword of Shadows and see what kind of crazy stuff I could do with that, but I decided to stick with Falchions. But man, it is super powerful, and especially with some of the new multipliers, you can make it so that your Barbarian is always running around with +10 W at all times at level 30. So Frenzy Berserker has some real crazy damage potential just at a Crazy Strike on top of everything else that they do. Anyway, I'll lead in here with the actual build by me. Alright, so I just want to take a second to kind of quickly go through my character and some of the decisions I made during the leveling process so you can kind of get a feel for it if you want to make one of these on your own. To start, I am a pure 20 Barbarian. I have a decent amount of strength and constitution. Decided to go pretty much just strength and wood elf, as I said previously in the video. The skills that I used while leveling up were use magic device, swim, intimidate, and then I later took balance and haggle. I didn't actually put any points into the jump skill because generally while raging and getting all the strength that I need, I can turn on all my rage effects and go up to 66 strength, which bumps my jump up pretty high, so it's not really a big concern actually putting points into the jump skill. For feats, my feat progression was pretty standard. I took power attack starting at level 1, and then I went into the combat styles, taking two-handed fighting, improved two-handed fighting, and greater two-handed fighting. I did take completionist when I could, because completionist is just super good. I try to take out every life because it's +2 to all scores and +2 to all skills. Really helpful, especially for my use magic device. Outside of that, I took improved critical slashing, and this for my last feat, because I was only going to 20, I actually don't even remember what I took. I took something. I don't think it's important. Depending on what you want to do, you have a couple different options. You could potentially take Stunning Blow. You could potentially look into taking Toughness. So you could take Epic Toughness at level 24 for some even more health. There's a whole bunch of different options. You could take Weapon Focus if you wanted to. You could take Past Life Fighter if you have that to get extra chance to hit. So you have a lot of really good options there. As far as enhancement goes, my character, my enhancements are pretty standard for a Frenzy Berserker. Getting everything, all the good stuff out of Frenzy Berserker. I didn't really like Tantrum. I tried it a little bit, but I found that the knockdown was really, really low. Like, it didn't last a long time. So you spend a lot of, like, it gives you a bit of breathing space, but I found it wasn't really that necessary. Cracking Attack, of course, very, very good with Crazy Strike, giving you really high damage buff. So this is one of the best buffs you can get out there. Of course, the +2 confidence bonus critical multiplier is really good, and then I went with Focus Wide to get the extra 10% glancing blow damage and chance for weapon effects on glancing blows, because this effect right here, Knockout, this actually works with glancing blows. So if you have that 10% proc chance, or whatever it is, you can actually knock out multiple enemies that are standing in front of you, which is very, very cool. I took everything in Frenzy Berserker, going for Storm's Eye, and then I decided to split up my points between Occult Slayer and Ravager. Occult Slayer, I just wanted to get this core here because it's really good after picking up Knockout. Just extra 60 life, 20 healing amp, 5 magical resistance rating is pretty good, and the extra percent damage reduction was helpful because I was playing in Reaper 3. Out of Ravager, extra con is nice, although I put everything into Ravager last. The only thing I didn't do was I put 1 point of Furious Rage. I roll 1s all the time, and so I want to capitalize on this by getting an extra 1 to my hit and damage every time I roll a 1. So against enemies, this had a 100% uptime, because I love DDO. And then I put the rest of my points in the Wood Elf tree, as I said. I want to go into Wood Elf for the very specific reason, rugged upbringing to get extra double strike while raging with falchions, and ferocity +2 to 3 to damage with two-handed weapons, as well as the additional damage on hit using falchions for Wood Elf weapon training. I also decided to take skill. I never really taken skill before. I wanted to see how good the dodge bypass was, and what I can confirm is I have no idea if dodge bypass even works in this game. I never found, and like, it didn't feel better to attack monsters that had dodge, like Fey champions or the Beastmark champions or Hero Soul champions. They still dodged almost all of my attacks, so I don't think skill is actually worth it. So if I was to do this again, I probably would avoid this whole line up here and not put points in the actual Wood Elf tree. I would rather just use a better weapon, like the Sword of Shadows or even Black Razor, something that's got a little bit more oomph to it for the leveling process. Other than that, if you wanted to take this character or make some adjustments, a couple things I would change. As I said, I wouldn't spend as many points in the Wood Elf tree. I'd probably swap off of Falchions. If you wanted to stay Falchions and put points in the Wood Elf tree, I would actually take some points out of Occult Slayer and make sure you pick up Action Boost Power to have some action boost for the end game. So probably get rid of this core, drop down to maybe only 14 points in here and spend the points in the Ravager tree, picking up the Action Boost Power as well as Demoralizing Success, which is pretty good. For epics, what you want to do is, I would recommend going in Fury of the Wild. I think Fury of the Wild is too good for a Barbarian to pass up. Acute Instincts is nice. Sense Weakness is nice, but just this Overwhelming Force, whenever you use Adrenaline and knock a target over, they're actually considered helpless, which is really, really powerful. And you get Vorpal Strikes all the time with this, because you get Adrenaline back every time you Vorpal, and you get Vorpals surprisingly often. You have a nearly 100% uptime on Focus Wide, which only works on Vorpals, so especially against multiple targets, you'll see this happening all the time. Very, very powerful. Highly recommend. With regards to twists, you have a couple different options. I would definitely recommend twisting in from Legendary Dreadnought Improved Power Attack, because that's pretty good. You could also potentially consider twisting in Action Boost Haste, which is also fairly nice. Rejuvenation Cocoon's never really a bad idea. You know, it's always going to give you a lot of additional stats. And then I said you've got a lot of freedom. You could go with the twist in Divine Crusader Consecration if you happen to have some spell points, which I do not. But you have a lot of options there for how you want to build your character. As far as equipment goes, I mean, I use the stuff I use from level 10 all the way up to level 20. So precision lenses, coat of the traveler, executioner's helm, a bunch of slave lords crafted gear, my chains, shackles, 5 rings, and 5 rings, all slave lords set. So I did actually have the set while leveling. The main weapon I used once you hit 14 was Tail of the Scorpion. And then before that, I actually used the Barovian Falchion because it's pretty damn good. And then, yeah, just Mantle of Fury, Visane Night Fighter Sash. So all my items, except for my weapon, are level 10 or lower. Barbarian, super fun to level, very, very easy, and I highly recommend it. As far as items that I carried around, I didn't really have anything important other than making sure I've got Wands of Shield and Resurrection Scrolls. Really, really powerful. There were a couple places where I definitely used a cake or two because I was playing on Reaper 3 and going a little bit more aggressive because I wanted to level up faster. But the last thing I want to talk about was this Fey Energy Tap. So this is actually surprisingly good. Fey Energy Tap essentially allows you to get 10% incorporeality and give yourself temporary spell points. And as long as you have the spell points, you get the incorporeality. Well, I don't spend anything with my spell points. So I click Fey Energy Tap, and now all of a sudden, I have incorporeality for 5 minutes. It's just really nice. I don't know if this actually lets you hit incorporeal monsters, but what I do know is it's very good defensively if you don't have an item that gives you Ghostly. So, just convenient for the leveling process, and it's pretty easy to get from getting enchantment lore here. Anyways, that's how I built this character. Like I said, if you want to try this out yourself, my biggest recommendation, especially if you're going towards epics, is take the points out of a Cult Slayer and put them into Ravager. But realistically, the character is really, really strong just with Frenzy Berserker alone. It's just crazy good. I highly recommend it, and I had a lot of fun. Anyways, that's kind of how I did this character. I want to go over the cosmetics really quick. I decided, because there's the new cloaks that just came out, I decided to go with the House Fjarlin cloak because I'm an elf, and elves are part of House Fjarlin, so I figured that made sense. And then with the Wood Elf, I do like the hairstyles that you get. They got that sweet fade, so I decided to get that awesome, you know, hair going off to the side. I had bought myself the purple hair dye out of the store because I think it was pink, whatever it was, out of the store because I wanted to make my character look cool, and I went with the purple Reaper eyes. I also really like the fact that you can get like piercing, like a lot of cooler looking piercings with the Wood Elves. So I got like that sick nose ring right there, whereas a lot of the regular elf piercings just kind of dots that appear around the ear and face. So I thought that was interesting. Also, this weapon is absolutely amazing. Highly recommend it. This robe that I'm wearing is actually the Temple robe. My character looks much better without the cloak, but I figured I gotta rep Fjarlin. I like this, the way my character looked right here. Kind of just like almost like definitely kind of looking like an occult slayer, some kind of cultist avenger sort of guy. Anyway, that's my character and everything I did with it. If you have any questions, do let me know, and I'll have a full build guide in the comments, or in the, not comments, in the description on the forums. Cool. Thanks for watching. Have a great day, everybody.